Story 1, the morning after the Neon Raccoon rave. I don't remember exactly when the night started to go sideways, maybe around the time Marcus showed up in a sequined bathrobe and handed me a plastic Viking helmet filled with something he called jungle nectar. But that's not really the beginning, is it? The real beginning was me telling myself I'll just have one drink, two tops. Which, in hindsight, is the biggest lie I tell myself. Besides, I'll start jogging next week. It was Caitlin's birthday, and she had rented out this warehouse near the train tracks. They called it the Neon Raccoon because the last time someone threw a party there, an actual raccoon had wandered in and stolen a glow stick. So that's how we ended up in a graffitied brick cavern with laser lights and a DJ who only played remixes of 90s sitcom theme songs. In other words, perfect conditions for catastrophic bad decisions. I remember arriving stone cold sober, wearing jeans and a sensible t-shirt, feeling smug that I wouldn't be that person. By 9:30, I was tipsy enough to shout, "I love you guys," to a room full of near strangers. By 11 o'clock, I had no idea where my phone was. At some point after midnight, the Viking helmet reappeared, and that's where things get blurry. Apparently, I danced on a folding table. Several witnesses later confirmed this. Someone has video evidence, but I've refused to watch it. All I know is I woke up sprawled across Caitlin's couch the next morning, wearing one sneaker and a trash bag as a cape, with my mouth tasting like stale cough syrup. When I opened my eyes, the light stabbed directly into the base of my skull. The soundtrack of my headache was the hum of fluorescent bulbs and the clinking of empty bottles someone was collecting. For a second, I thought maybe I died and was in some tacky limbo. But then Caitlin's cat leapt onto my chest, kneaded my sternum like bread dough, and reminded me that I was still alive and suffering for my sins. I tried to sit up. Bad idea. The room spun, then lunged sideways like a carnival ride. I collapsed back onto the couch, gasping. My mouth was so dry it felt like I'd licked the bottom of a hamster cage. My tongue was coated in something unidentifiable, maybe jungle nectar residue. A chorus of groans drifted from the floor. I turned my head, agonized, and realized that about 6 other people were sprawled around the living room, in various states of undress and regret. Marcus was curled up beneath the coffee table, still wearing the bathrobe. He cracked one eye open and rasped, "Is it Tuesday?" I didn't know. It could have been Thursday for all I cared. Somewhere in the kitchen, someone was brewing coffee that smelled like burned plastic. I tried to focus on my breathing. In, out, in, out. My heart felt like it was trying to kick its way out of my rib cage. There was a sour tang of spilled liquor in the air. Someone had scrawled "R.I.P. liver" on the fridge with a Sharpie. I needed water. I needed about 8 gallons of it, and a large, greasy breakfast, and probably an exorcism. Instead, I lay there, remembering flashes from the night before. A conga line that ended in a minor pileup. Caitlin trying to sword fight with pool noodles, and me bragging to strangers that I could definitely do the worm. Spoiler, I could not. I tried to get up again, more slowly this time. My joints felt rusted, like I'd been stored in a damp garage all winter. I staggered to my feet, immediately regretted it, and clutched the back of the couch for dear life. The floor felt like it was tilting. I could hear my heartbeat in my eardrums. The kitchen was a war zone. Red Solo cups overflowed from the sink. A half-eaten pizza was fused to a paper plate. Someone had dumped a bag of chips on the counter and ground them into dust. A stray balloon bobbed against the ceiling fan. "Water?" I croaked. No one acknowledged me. I was a husk of a person, a desiccated reminder of last night's enthusiasm. My own voice echoed in my skull like a megaphone. I found a cleanish glass, filled it, and gulped half the water before realizing it tasted like metal. Didn't care. Survival instincts overrode my standards. I drained the glass, poured another, and leaned against the fridge. My reflection in the microwave door looked haunted. Hair sticking out in greasy tufts, eyeliner smudged into raccoon territory, skin the color of old oatmeal. As I sipped, I tried to piece the night together. At 8 o'clock, we were pre-gaming with something called Blue Apocalypse, which looked like windshield wiper fluid. By 10, Caitlin was giving tequila shots to everyone within a 15-foot radius. At 11:30, I was wearing the Viking helmet, chanting "Victory or Valhalla." After midnight, Nothing but foggy vignettes, singing on top of a crate, hugging at least 4 strangers, and, most embarrassingly, attempting to DJ by pressing random buttons. When I finally shuffled back to the living room, I saw Marcus propped on an elbow, sipping flat soda through a crazy straw. He looked up, eyes bloodshot. "You alive?" he asked. "Barely. Did I try to crowd surf?" "You did. You fell immediately." "Good." He sank back to the floor, satisfied. It was then I noticed the smell, something acrid and suspicious. I followed it to the corner, where a soggy cardboard box sat leaking onto the carpet. My stomach heaved, and I had to take a moment to breathe through my nose and think of anything other than last night's jungle nectar. Caitlin emerged from the hallway, looking somehow worse than I did. Panda-eyed, hair stuck to her cheek, clutching a plastic bag of ice like a security blanket. "Oh, God," she groaned. "Does anyone know who threw up in my closet?" Nobody confessed. A collective hush fell over the room. I cleared my throat, instantly regretted the effort. "What time is it?" "Almost noon." Noon? I'd lost an entire morning to the kind of hangover that makes you reconsider every choice you've ever made. The kind that makes you swear you'll never drink again until the next invitation shows up. By 12:30, the survivors had managed to crawl to the corner bodega for emergency supplies. We returned with Gatorade, aspirin, breakfast sandwiches, and giant bottles of seltzer. The next hour passed in silence, punctuated only by the crinkle of wrappers and the occasional groan. As I sipped Gatorade and tried not to move my head, I thought about how easily the night had gotten away from us. It had seemed so harmless. A birthday party, a few drinks, a warehouse full of neon lights. But by the time the jungle nectar was in circulation, we'd all abandoned reason. Somewhere around 2 p.m., I finally felt human enough to check my phone. 20 missed messages, a few alarming photos, and a blurry video of me slurring the lyrics to the Family Matters theme song into someone's shoe. I decided to delete it without watching the whole thing. Caitlin reappeared, pale but functional. She raised her Gatorade like a toast. To survival. We all tapped bottles and cans together. "Never again," I declared. Nobody believed me, not even me. And so ended the Neon Raccoon Raid, a night of questionable decisions, hideous hangovers, and memories best left in the warehouse. But even as I lay there, exhausted and nauseous, a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered, "At least it was legendary." Story 2, the night Marco showed up. I didn't know the party was going to turn into a cautionary tale. I thought it was going to be a regular Friday. Drinks, loud music, some bad decisions, and maybe a regrettable text or two. But that was before Marco showed up, before the fight, before I learned exactly how quickly a house party can unravel into chaos when someone brings their dealer. It started innocently enough. Benji had just moved into a new place, a sprawling, half-finished house in the suburbs with no furniture except a battered sectional, a folding table, and a collection of thrift store lamps that didn't match anything. The draw was that he had a huge basement and no neighbors within screaming distance. The plan? Fill it with people, plug in a few speakers, and see where the night led. We showed up around 9. Someone was already blasting music through a Bluetooth speaker, balanced on a stack of paint cans. The place smelled like fresh drywall, cheap weed, and anticipation. I brought a 6-pack of beer and a bag of chips that would never survive the first hour. People trickled in. A few co-workers of Benji's, some friends of friends, and a couple of faces I vaguely recognized from other parties. Before long, there were 20 people packed into the basement, the lights set to a lurid purple glow. We were passing around plastic cups of boxed wine and cheap vodka. By 11, it was a proper party. Someone had cleared a spot on the floor for dancing. The table was a mess of Solo cups, half-eaten pizza slices, and empty bottles. I'd lost track of my own drink twice and resorted to just holding it in my hand, taking tiny sips so nobody would pressure me to shotgun anything. At some point, I noticed Jamie in the corner, furiously texting. He looked nervous, the kind of nervous that clings to your shoulders and makes you glance at the door every 30 seconds. "You good?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, way too quickly. Just, waiting for someone." I didn't push it. Everyone has their secrets, and it wasn't my business who he was waiting for. If I'd known, maybe I'd have unplugged the speaker and called it a night. But hindsight's a cruel teacher. Around midnight, the front door opened. In walked Marco. I'd never met him in person, but I'd heard his name, whispered at other parties, usually in the same tone you'd use to describe a dead rat you found in your garage. He was Jamie's dealer, and apparently he was the kind of guy who liked to make deliveries in person. Marco looked like trouble, head shaved, neck tattoos curling up to his jaw, a thick gold chain resting over a black t-shirt. He walked in like he owned the place. I swear the music dropped half a decibel and people noticed him. "Jamie," he called. His voice was deceptively calm, smooth as a salesman. "Let's talk." Jamie flinched. He looked like he wanted to vanish into the drywall. I tried not to watch, but it was impossible. Marco followed Jamie to a dark corner by the laundry hookups. They were speaking low, but their body language was clear. Marco leaning in, Jamie shrinking back. A couple of people pretended not to notice. The rest of us shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting to the door. I should have left then. I should have made an excuse, grabbed my coat, and bailed. But curiosity and boxed wine are a dangerous combination. Minutes passed. The tension climbed. The music thumped in the background, but nobody was dancing anymore. A few brave souls slipped upstairs. I stayed frozen by the folding table, listening to my heartbeat in my ears. Then it happened. Marco's voice snapped across the room. "You think you can stiff me?" Everyone fell silent. Jamie sputtered something I couldn't hear, gesturing helplessly. Marco shoved him, hard enough that Jamie staggered back into the dryer. A bottle toppled off the table and shattered on the floor. That was all it took. The fragile truce between party and menace broke. Someone yelled, "Hey, chill out!" Another person tried to step between them. Marco swung just once and caught the guy in the shoulder. The crowd lurched back, and then it was pandemonium. I don't remember the next minute clearly. Shouts. The sound of glass breaking again. Someone tripping over the extension cord, cutting the music off mid-beat. Jamie trying to duck past Marco, who grabbed him by the collar and dragged him back. Benji ran in, waving his arms. "Get out of my house," he screamed. Marco ignored him. He was shouting about money, debts, respect. His face was red, eyes wild. For a second, I thought he was going to pull something worse than a fist out of his pocket. My stomach twisted. A couple of guys finally tackled Marco from behind. He went down hard, Jamie scrambling free. Benji lunged for the door, flung it open, and yelled for everyone to get the hell out. We flooded up the basement stairs in a terrified stampede. I nearly lost a shoe in the crush. Someone was crying. Someone else was yelling into their phone, probably calling the cops. Out on the lawn, the night air felt shockingly cold. I stood there, shivering, adrenaline coursing through me. People were scattering into cars, shuffling down the sidewalk, hugging themselves. Inside, the shouting continued. Benji emerged a few minutes later, pale and trembling. "Is he gone?" I asked. "Yeah," he croaked. Jamie gave him everything he had. He finally left. "Is he going to come back?" Benji shook his head helplessly. "I don't know." Nobody knew what to do. The party was over. There was no going back down into that basement, no pretending the night hadn't imploded. We stood in a loose circle on the lawn, too shocked to leave, too humiliated to look each other in the eye. I checked my phone. 2 a.m. It felt like it had been years since I walked in, expecting nothing more than bad music and cheap booze. Somebody said they'd call an Uber. Someone else offered Benji a cigarette. Nobody mentioned Jamie. He'd vanished the second Marco left, probably running for his life. Eventually, I made my way home. My hands were still shaking when I turned my key in the lock. I couldn't stop replaying it. Marco's voice cracking across the room, the shove, the scramble, the moment everything fell apart. I crawled into bed fully clothed, the smell of drywall dust still in my hair. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the panic on Jamie's face. The next day, I woke up to a text from Benji. "Thanks for staying calm. We're all okay. Let's not talk about it for a while." I agreed, but even weeks later, I couldn't shake it. Not just the fear, but the knowledge of how close everything had come to something worse. How a party can feel safe, just drinks and music, until it isn't. We all learned something that night, though none of us wanted to admit it. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loud drunk or the couple fighting in the kitchen. It's the one who shows up uninvited, looking to collect. And after that, whenever someone said, "It's just a few people coming over," I asked a new question. Who exactly is coming over? Because I never wanted to see Marco again. And I never wanted to stand in a basement, heart racing, realizing too late that this wasn't a party anymore. It was a reckoning.